Every part of a new machine was tested many times. All of the checks and tests were intended to make sure that IBM machines almost never broke down. But someone once calculated that it would take IBM 9 months to produce an empty box. Bill Lowe ran a small IBM research laboratory in Boca Raton, Florida. He knew the company was in trouble and believed he had a solution. He would change the tradition of IBM that every single part of a computer must be built by the company itself. Bill Lowe went to his boss, Frank Carey. "What are we going to do, Bill?" Frank Carey asked. "Apple is hurting us. They're making us look stupid." "Well, I think we can build our own personal computer." "No," said Frank Carey. "At IBM, it would take 4 years and 300 people to do anything. That's just a fact of life." "No, sir," said Bill Lowe. "I can build an IBM personal computer in a year." "Tell me what you need," said Frank Carey. "I really need permission to go outside IBM. If I can hire outside firms to do the engineering work, I can get the job done in a year." "But we've never done that. It's not the IBM way." "I think it's the only way now, sir." "Okay, I hope you're right. Hire whoever you want." IBM would soon produce the most successful computer in history. But at the same time, the company would lose control of the computer industry. The company that was Bill Lowe's first choice to write the software for the new PC missed the meeting. His second choice was the team that had written the first useful program for the Altair, Microsoft, the company started by Bill Gates and Paul Allen. Microsoft was now in Seattle, Bill and Paul's home. Bill Gates dropped all his other projects to meet the men from IBM. He even put on a suit. IBM was hoping for an operating system. The operating system is the most important software on any computer. It controls how everything else works. It usually takes an enormous amount of work to write an operating system. Microsoft did not have an operating system, but as before with the Altair, Bill Gates believed he could quickly create the program that was needed. IBM agreed, and Bill went away and bought an operating system program from another Seattle software company. This program became DOS, the operating system of many millions of PCs. It was also the beginning of the flood of cash that would make Bill Gates the richest man in the world. The deal that IBM made with Bill Gates was unusual. IBM would help Microsoft to create the operating system. It would also pay Microsoft for every single copy of the program. But Microsoft would own the program, and it could sell DOS to any company that wanted it. Bill Lowe kept his promise. The IBM PC was created very quickly, but it was more successful than anyone imagined. The computer was first sold in 1981. IBM believed that it might sell 500,000 computers by 1984. In fact, it sold 2 million. People used to say no one ever lost his job for choosing IBM. Now these business buyers could choose an IBM PC. The IBM label meant that business trusted the machine. IBM did not make toys, so the personal computer was soon accepted as a serious business tool. And as soon as business was buying these machines, their price began to fall, and many more people began to buy them for use at home and at school. IBM changed from a company with thousands of customers who bought million-dollar machines to a company with millions of customers who bought $1,000 machines. However, IBM soon lost control of this enormous new market. Anyone could copy the design of the PC and then buy the operating system from Microsoft. New computer companies like Compaq quickly did this. Soon they began to sell many more PCs than IBM. IBM remained a big, powerful company, but it would never again have complete control of its industry. In the 1980s, computers became common. They began to appear in every area of life. And when they were connected together, they created the internet that we know today. Chapter 5. The World Wide Web. The land around Geneva in the Swiss Alps is beautiful mountain countryside. People travel here from all over the world for holidays and winter sports. But among the farms and the lakes and the hotels, there are also some of the largest, most powerful and most expensive scientific tools on Earth. One of these machines is an enormous ring that spins tiny pieces of matter around in 27-kilometre circles. When they are travelling at nearly the speed of light, the machine forces them to crash together. Scientists study the resulting explosions, hoping to discover more about the building blocks of the universe. This is the home of CERN, Europe's Centre for Research into High-Energy Physics. CERN explores what matter is made from and what holds it together. It is not the type of scientific laboratory that produces practical inventions. But there, in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. Tim is an English engineer with computers in his blood. Both of his parents worked on the first commercial computer made in Britain, the Ferranti Mark I. In 1980, Tim got a job at CERN for 6 months, and during this time he wrote a program called Inquire Within. This name comes from a popular British book that was first published in 1856. The book is full of advice and information on all sorts of different topics, from how to clean blood from a shirt to how to get married. Tim's program aimed to organise his thoughts in the same way that the book organises its information. He wanted to find a way to create links among a wide variety of topics that interested him. He says that brains are supposed to be good at remembering the relationships between lots of different things, but sometimes his brain was not very good at this. Inquire Within was the answer. With the program, Tim could make electronic connections within documents. He could also make connections between different documents on different computers. So if Tim was interested in apples, he could link all of the paragraphs in a document that were about apples. And if there was a really good Apple database on another computer, he would make a link to that as well. Inquire Within was new because it could organise information according to the content of documents, not where they could be found. It was hypertext. Ordinary text is anything that is written, a book, a letter, or a document on a computer screen. To make sense of a text, you read it from beginning to end. A hypertext is a special kind of text that is intended to give more freedom to the reader and the writer. It contains links that lead to other places. They can lead to other texts, but also to pictures or programs or musical recordings. There is no single path through a hypertext. Readers can choose the path that suits them best. The power of a hypertext link is that it can link to anything, says Tim. That was the central idea. You ought to be able to make a link to anything that is sitting on a computer disk anywhere. If the computer is connected to a network, you ought to be able to give it an address and link to it. Tim says that CERN is a web-like place. Scientists come to CERN from all over the world. Some stay, but many go back to their own laboratories and universities, which use many different types of computer and software. But the scientists still want to communicate and share information. There were always different sorts of people from different countries who brought different sorts of computing equipment. So CERN was one of the first places to work on getting files from one computer system to another, getting email across borders and into another system. That was the spirit. There was a lot of networking. It was possible to get something from a distant computer at this time, but you had to be a computer expert to do it. It was technically simple to go and get something. but you had to be an expert of the highest degree to find your way through all the networks, to use all the programs that you found on your way, and to use the right commands to get the data back. And it was likely that when you got something back, you would not be able to read it anyway, because it was from a different computer system. In 1989, when Tim was again working at CERN, he decided to try to make communication between the scientists easier. He believed that hypertext could help the scientists to work more efficiently because it could create paths through CERN's web. In March 1989, Tim wrote a plan saying that a hypertext project was going to be very important for the scientists who were connected with CERN. He took the plan to his bosses. "This is interesting," they said, "but it's not really our kind of project, is it? We don't do information technology here. We do high-energy physics." "But a hypertext system will really help CERN," said Tim. "Yes, well, thank you. We'll think about it." Tim saw that he was not going to persuade his bosses to build a hypertext system, but soon he had another idea. There was a coffee room between the scientists' offices and the computer rooms, so the people who needed to use the information were constantly meeting the people who ran the computers. By talking to the right people, Tim began to create support for his plan. "Don't you get tired of translating data for the scientists?" he said to the computer people. "Yes, there are too many computer systems around here," they replied. "But if there was a single program that organized all the different types of data..." "That would be great, but there isn't, is there?" "Not yet," said Tim. He spoke to the scientists as well. "Don't you get tired of all the extra work you have to do on computers? Wouldn't you like to be able to concentrate on the physics?" "Yes, but what can we do?" "You need a program that allows you to make easy links between your research and everybody else's work." "That sounds great," said the scientists, "but where can we get a program like that?" "I can write it for you," said Tim. In October 1989, Tim started writing a program that he called World Wide Web. When you were reading something interesting on the computer screen, you could just choose a phrase and link it to another document. Then you just needed to hit a hotkey, and the other document appeared on screen. A hotkey is a key on a computer's keyboard that is programmed to do something special when it is pressed. At first, World Wide Web was the name of Tim's program. Today, the World Wide Web, or simply the web, is all of the billions of documents on millions of computers that can be read by the browsers that have followed Tim's original program. In ordinary life, if you browse, you look at a variety of things, hoping that some of them will be interesting. People browse through newspapers or in bookshops or museums. If you want to, you can browse through a book, though most books are written to be read from beginning to end. But a hypertext is designed for browsing. Tim's original browser program allowed writers to create links to anything they liked, and it allowed readers to follow their interests from link to link. The program used a new invention, a system of addresses. The system means that anything, anywhere on the internet, can have its own special address. The addresses are called URLs. The web browser understands what to do with anything that has a URL. Tim also invented a set of rules for sending text and pictures over the internet. The rules allow a document to appear almost exactly the same, whatever computer system is being used. For web authors, Tim also created a new computer language called HTML. This is the language in which all web documents are written. It controls how text and pictures are shown on a computer screen. Together, these inventions changed the world of the Internet. The Internet of the 1980s was a place for computer experts. Since the 1990s, anyone with a computer has been able to use it. For most people, the web browser is the friendliest program they ever use. People at CERN began using Tim's browser in 1990. In 1991, CERN put the browser software on the internet so that it was free to anyone who wanted it. Within 4 years, the World Wide Web was the most popular use of the net. Tim Berners-Lee believes that the success of the web gives hope to dreamers everywhere. When you really believe in a dream of how things could be, then you follow the dream, and it's very, very satisfying to see it work. It's exciting that you can have an idea and it can take off and it can happen. It means that dreamers all over the world should take off and not stop. Tim's browser gave an idea to a group of young programmers in the USA. In just a few years, the business they started would take off and become the fastest growing company that the world has ever seen, Netscape Communications. Chapter 6. Netscape. This software is going to change everything. Soon everyone will be using it, Mark Andreessen said to John Durr. John often heard claims like this. His job was finding finance for new companies. So every day he met people who were confident that their ideas were going to change the world and make millions of dollars in the process. But Mark and his plan were different. Mark was only 23 years old, but already he had a good reason to be confident. A few months before, he had written a program called Mosaic. Now 2 million people were using it. I suppose you don't need to be a scientist to realize that there is a big market there, said John Durr. John loaned Mark the money he wanted for his business. Mark's company would soon be the fastest growing firm in history. Everything would soon change on the internet. Tim Berners-Lee had invented the World Wide Web, which made the internet easy to use, but it was equally important that the law of the internet had changed. Until 1992, John Durr's idea of an internet market was not just ambitious, it was actually illegal. The internet was built with US government money, and the government did not allow anyone to make a profit from it. This changed in November 1992, when President Bush signed a law that allowed commercial use of the network. Soon there were many hundreds of new businesses on the web. It became the most fashionable topic for the business pages of the world's newspapers. The web was so popular, it must be the future of business. Billions of dollars would surely follow. The problem was that before Mark Andreessen came along, no one had found a way to make very much money from an internet business. 2 years before Mark Andreessen walked into John Durr's office, he was not planning to change the world. He was working at a boring, low-paid job because he needed the cash. Mark worked at the University of Illinois. There he wrote software for very large mainframe computers, enormously powerful machines that are mainly used to solve very difficult problems in science and engineering. But Mark did not find the work interesting. In fact, he was very bored. "This kind of computing is dying," he often said to his friend Eric Beener. "It really should be dead already. PCs are the way forward." While Mark programmed the mainframes, he also spent lots of time playing on the internet. Mark and his friends at the university all loved the new World Wide Web, but Mark also believed it could be better. There were no pictures on web pages, and the browser still needed typed commands. It did not have the kind of interface that personal computers had made popular. By this time, nearly all PCs drew windows, menus, and buttons on their screens. These represented files, commands, and processes, so the user could control the computer very easily, without typing lines of strange numbers and letters. One night, very late, Mark decided to do something about this. "At the moment, the web's just a tool for researchers and scientists," he said to his friends. "You need to be a computer programmer if you want to use it, but it could be so much better." "How?" his friends asked.